Plans for a Muslim community center a few blocks from Ground Zero became a lightning rod in the controversy over where Muslims fit in American society. Since then, there has been an outpouring of anger and prejudice against and support for Muslim Americans. Let's welcome Kareem Irfan, a Muslim and the president of the Council of Religious Leaders of Metropolitan Chicago. We also welcome Kareem's children, Zuhair Irfan, a sophomore at Benedictine University, and Zuha Irfan, a student at DePaul University School of Law. Welcome to you all. Thank you so much for being here. Kareem, can you start us off by telling us how your organization has addressed the issue of the mosque at Ground Zero, the Park 51 Mosque, the New York Mosque? It's been referred to a number of different ways, but it's been a huge part of the debate in America around the place of Muslims in our culture.
The Council of Religious Leaders itself, it's a body that includes the top-level representatives of the major faiths across Chicago. So you have, for instance, Cardinal George representing the Catholic community, and you have Bishop Demetrios representing the Greek Orthodox community. I am privileged to represent the Muslim American community. We have leaders from across the board. Most recently, we have expanded and are privileged to have representatives from the Hindu, Jain, Buddhist, Sikh, and Baha'i communities in place. What we generally do is get together on a regular basis and discuss issues of significance from the social and the religious perspective. And every action that we take is based on consensus so that everybody who's seated at the table is comfortable with whatever action or initiative we sign on to. It is in that regard that one of the most recent actions we have taken is issuing a statement on behalf of the council addressing what we felt were serious concerns about how Muslims and Islam were portrayed in view of the controversy about the Park 51, the Manhattan Mosque. And in a nutshell, what we expressed was concern about the demonization of a particular faith, the negative portrayal of Americans who may not ascribe to the Judeo-Christian tradition, and in this case Islam, the spread of Islamophobia and the whipping up of negative emotions and misunderstanding that is spread about the religion. And we expressed concern as a collective body, indicating it is time for us to focus on how can we get beyond those differences that tend to divide us and instead focus on the common values that all our faiths stand for. So that statement has gone on, and at the same time, interestingly, we've also addressed concerns about a Greek Orthodox church that was destroyed on 9/11 and has since had significant difficulty going through the zoning process, getting approvals from the city. So we also addressed that. It is good to keep that in mind because we tend to get carried away by focusing on just the spotlight on a particular religious community, that we as Americans must keep in mind that we are a conglomeration of a diversity of faiths, religions, perspectives, backgrounds, and it is very important that under these times of social upheaval that we focus on what binds the country together and get beyond what tends to divide us.
Well, given just what you said, that our country is founded on a multicultural, multi-religious, accepting model, did it surprise you that the rhetoric around the Ground Zero mosque was so strong and so virulent in so many ways?
Well, perhaps from my vantage point, it wasn't a surprise because I have had a direct engagement with the pulse of the people from a spectrum of our society, and I have seen the negative emotions that are carried by a minority of Americans, but primarily based on their ignorance about people of other faiths. So that was an undercurrent that has been throughout our social movements in the past several years. And then 9/11 happened, some concerns got extremely focused, and then when this issue about the Park 51 mosque came up, those emotions ended up being whipped up into a frenzy by some extreme commentators, and extreme viewpoints are always divisive in our society. So I wasn't completely surprised, but I was a bit taken aback by the fact that our media could control so much of the negative aspects of what Americans think about. And it has emphasized to me the need for all of us as Americans to be vigilant in understanding what our fellow Americans of different faiths stand for and then trying to reach out and make sure that we truly are building bridges of understanding and fostering cordial relationships, and consider that our patriotic duty to do so.
How have you two been affected by growing up as young Americans that happen to be of Muslim faith here in America? How has some of these issues that we're discussing affected each of you? Zuha?
Well, I know of several people who have had negative reactions and negative comments said to them as they're walking down the road or walking down the street. I've been very fortunate that I myself have not experienced that, but I think a lot of that comes from how you portray yourself as a Muslim American. If I'm on the train and I'm reading Stieg Larsson's latest novel and listening to my iPod, I think it helps ease that image of what a Muslim American is, and it shows everyone that we're normal, we do normal things, and not all of us are the same.
It's important to keep in mind that we all have similar values, values of equality, freedom, and independence. And as long as we all stick to those core values and just go by those, we all have similar things in common. And as long as we can build upon those similarities, we should be able to get along with each other. And if people see how we really are, if people see me at a basketball game, wearing a Derrick Rose Bulls jersey, they'll say, hey, it's another Bulls fan. It's not a Muslim American who's out there to get me.
How have each of you balanced that tricky sort of navigation between assimilation and being just an American kid, and also ascribing, your beliefs to your faith and following certain dietary or dress codes? How have you managed that balance in each of your experiences?
Well, first of all, I consider myself an American Muslim, so I don't see myself practicing Islam as something that's very different or that's a burden for me, or I'm not trying to confront other people with prejudices. It's just a normal way of life for me, and I do have American values as well as Islamic values, and I think it's important to find that balance between being able to follow your religion confidently and also portray American values that other people can see and relate to you.
Juan Williams, a contributor to NPR and Fox News, recently said, "When I get on the plane, if I see people who are in Muslim garb and I think they are identifying themselves first and foremost as Muslims, I get worried, I get nervous." How do you make sense of those comments?
Whenever we do wear our Islamic garb, there are people who give you the weird looks. Even at school, when I have worn it on occasion, people have given me some interesting looks, but a lot of the times they're curious. And I've had some of my friends and some other people come up to me and ask me why I'm dressed up, and that just gives me another opportunity to explain why I'm dressed up. This past week we had our Eid festival, and I was able to explain to them the reasoning behind it, why I'm dressed up, why we go out and have a good time. So I feel it's another way of communicating and building bridges between faiths.
And as people who are wearing Muslim garb, I feel it's our responsibility to make sure that we're open and accessible to other people, to relay the true meaning behind why we're dressing the way we are, and to explain to them the reasoning behind it so that they really understand the religious symbolism behind it.
It is very important to keep this distinction between having the right religious identity and having pride in it, and at the same time subscribing to the core patriotic values of this country. And every single American, including your viewers out there, have this duty to make that distinction, that you cannot correlate patriotism to a certain set of religious values and say it is subscription strictly to Judeo-Christian values, for instance, that makes you a patriot. We have to understand that people can be comfortable with their Muslim identity, with their Christian identity, with their Jewish identity, with their Hindu identity, and yet subscribe to the core values for which this country stands.
Kareem, Zuhair, Zuha, thank you all for being here.
Thanks.
I'm Bo River for Different Drummers. Keep the faith.